There is a moment in your life you've been avoiding, and it begins the day you stop pleasing everyone and finally meet the person you've ignored the most, yourself. Before we go deeper, tell me this. If you've ever lived for others' approval, comment 1. If not, tap like and share your clarity. Life is packed with choices. They come at you the moment you open your eyes. What to wear, what to do, what to say, which direction to walk in today. It never stops. And somewhere in that endless stream of decisions, something strange happens. We get so caught up in choosing everything else that we forget about the one choice that actually shapes everything. The choice of who we are in the middle of all this. Most people never notice it. They're too busy trying to keep up, trying to get it right, trying to be the kind of person the world approves of. It's like running on a treadmill that never slows down. You can feel yourself moving, but you're not sure where you're going or why. And if you're honest, you can sense that something isn't quite aligned. Something deep inside keeps whispering that you're living slightly off-center, slightly out of rhythm with yourself. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you stopped long enough to feel your own presence? Not the version of you that performs, adjusts, impresses, or pleases. I mean the quiet you, the real one. The one that doesn't have to earn a place in the world because it already belongs here. This is where everything begins. Not with another decision about your schedule or your obligations, but with the decision to finally turn inward and see what's truly there. And once you see it, everything else starts to shift in ways you never expected. There's a question most people avoid without even realizing it. A question that quietly shapes every step they take, every choice they make, every version of themselves they present to the world. It's simple, but it cuts deeper than anything else. Who am I living for? It sounds innocent at first, but if you sit with it for a moment, you'll notice something unsettling. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, there's an audience. Not a real one, an invisible one. A silent crowd made up of expectations, memories, judgments, and imagined opinions. They're always watching, always evaluating, always waiting for you to do the right thing, say the right words, fit the right mold. Most people spend their entire lives performing for that audience. They don't call it performing, of course. They call it being responsible, being agreeable, being successful, being normal. But deep down, they're not living from their own center. They're living for approval they might never receive from people they might never meet. And the strange thing is, you don't even remember when it started. One day you just woke up and realized you were carrying this weight. The constant desire to be enough, to be acceptable, to be what someone else needed you to be. So you adjust, you shrink, you keep trying to fit into a shape that was never designed for you. But here's the truth. Until you ask this question honestly, nothing changes. Until you pause long enough to see who you're actually living for, you can't begin to reclaim your own life. So take a breath, notice the audience in your head, notice how long they've been there, and then ask yourself again, quietly and without fear, who am I really living for? There's a belief that has been quietly planted in almost all of us. A belief that choosing yourself is wrong, that it's selfish, that it means turning your back on the people you care about, the responsibilities you carry, the roles you're supposed to play. And because of that belief, most people never even consider what it would feel like to simply stand in their own truth. We're taught from childhood to be pleasing, to be agreeable, to be helpful, to make everyone around us comfortable, even if it means abandoning ourselves in the process. Little by little, choosing others becomes a reflex, while choosing ourselves becomes a fear. We learn to mistake self-sacrifice for goodness and self-awareness for ego. But choosing yourself is not about pushing anyone away. It's not about retreating to some distant island and ignoring the world. It's not rebellion. It's recognition. Recognition that you are not here to play a role that smothers your spirit. Recognition that you are part of life, not separate from it. And that honoring your own nature is the very thing that allows you to show up authentically for others. When you choose yourself, you are not rejecting life. You are finally accepting it. You are stopping the quiet internal war you've been fighting for years. The war against your own instincts, your own intuition, your own voice. And when that war ends, something incredible begins to happen. Your mind softens. Your chest loosens. You can breathe again. Real relaxation doesn't come from lying still. It comes from dropping resistance, from no longer forcing yourself into a version of you that feels unnatural. When you choose yourself, the tension that once filled every corner of your being starts to dissolve. Not because you've conquered it, but because you've stopped feeding it. Choosing yourself is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of honesty. And honesty is where real freedom begins. There comes a moment when you finally notice the constant noise inside your own head, the voice that questions every move you make, the one that whispers, "Is this good enough? Do they approve? Am I doing it right?" For most of your life, you've treated that voice as if it were you, as if it were the authority on who you should become. But the moment you choose yourself, something shifts. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gently, like a tight knot beginning to loosen. You start to see that the voice isn't actually yours. It's an echo, a collection of every expectation you've absorbed. Parents wanting you to be responsible, teachers wanting you to be impressive, friends wanting you to fit in, society wanting you to follow the script. Layer after layer of noise that never came from your own center. And living under all that pressure is like wearing clothes that don't fit. Clothes that are too tight in the wrong places, too loose where they shouldn't be, awkward and exhausting to move around in. You keep adjusting. You keep pulling at the seams. You keep pretending it's fine because everyone else seems to be doing the same. But deep down, you know it doesn't fit. It never has. Choosing yourself is like taking off those clothes. At first, it feels strange, almost uncomfortable. You've been wearing them for so long that part of you thinks you need them. But then something unexpected happens. You take a full breath, and for the first time in years, it actually reaches your lungs. Your shoulders drop. Your body softens. The world stops feeling like a performance. This is where authenticity begins, not with some dramatic declaration, but with the quiet decision to stop pretending, to stop bending yourself into shapes that were never meant for you, to stop chasing approval from an audience that doesn't even exist outside your own mind. And in that moment of honesty, you discover a kind of ease you didn't know was possible. A natural way of moving through the world that requires no effort, no disguises, no rehearsed lines, just you, finally allowed to be you. The moment you begin to return to yourself, something interesting happens. People notice, not because you're louder or bolder or suddenly doing something dramatic, but because you've stopped performing. And for many, that shift is uncomfortable. Your authenticity becomes a mirror they didn't ask to look into. Some will say you've changed. They'll say you're being distant, selfish, irresponsible. They'll wonder why you aren't as predictable as before, why you aren't as eager to please, why you're no longer bending yourself into the same familiar shapes. What they really mean is that your freedom exposes the limits they've placed on their own lives. And that can feel threatening. When you stop pretending, the people who depended on your pretending feel it immediately. They may try to pull you back, not out of malice, but out of fear. Fear of losing the version of you that made their world easier. Fear of being confronted with choices they haven't been willing to make for themselves. You'll hear subtle warnings. You'll feel subtle pressure. You might even doubt yourself for a moment. Maybe they're right. Maybe you really are being too much, or too different, or too honest. Maybe the easier path is to go back to the way things were, the familiar, the safe. But deep down, you know that safety was only an illusion. Because once you've tasted what it feels like to live from your own center, you can't unfeel it. You can't unknow the truth of who you are. And no amount of pressure from the outside can make you fully return to the old version of yourself again. This is the point where many people turn back. But it's also the point where the real journey begins. The journey of choosing yourself even when it shakes the ground beneath you. There's a moment in every inner awakening when you suddenly see the truth with a clarity you can't explain. It doesn't arrive politely. It doesn't knock. It breaks in like sunlight pouring through curtains that have been shut for years. 1 second the room is dim and familiar, and the next everything is illuminated. Every corner, every shadow, every place you've avoided looking. And once that light arrives, you can't unknow it. You can try to pull the curtains closed again, but it won't work the same way. There will always be a thin crack where the light slips through, reminding you of what you've already seen, of who you already are. This is what happens when you choose yourself. It's not a single decision made in a dramatic moment. It's a daily practice, a returning, a remembering. Every morning you wake up and silently ask yourself, am I going to live from my truth today, or am I going to perform again? Most days, the answer feels clear. You feel aligned, grounded, present, but there are days when the old patterns rush back like a tide. Days when the approval you thought you didn't need suddenly feels important again. Days when the familiar weight of expectations creeps onto your shoulders. And on those days, the temptation to slip back into your old self can feel overwhelming. This is where gentleness matters. Choosing yourself does not mean being perfect. It means being honest. It means noticing when you're slipping into old roles without shaming yourself for it. It means breathing, pausing, and coming home to yourself again and again, even if you have to do it 100 times in a single day. Awakening is not a straight line. It's not a steady climb. It's a rhythm, expansion and contraction, light and shadow, confidence and doubt. But through it all, there's something steady inside you that wasn't there before. A sense that your life is no longer built on performance, but on presence. And once you've felt this, even for a moment, you realize that the old life, the one built on pretending, can no longer contain you. Imagine for a moment that you are a wave, not the ocean, just a single wave rising and falling on the surface of something much larger. For years, you believe that your entire existence is defined by your shape, your height, your duration, your ability to stand out among the other waves. You compare yourself. You worry about crashing too soon. You try to last a little longer, reach a little higher, move a little faster. This is how most people live. As if they are separate. As if their worth depends on holding a form that was never meant to last. But then something shifts. One day, in a moment of quiet awareness, you feel something beneath you. Something vast. Something steady. Something that has been there the entire time but was drowned out by all the noise and striving. And suddenly it becomes clear. You are not just the wave, you are the water. You always have been. The wave is only a temporary expression of the ocean's movement, a momentary pattern, a dance. When you rise, the ocean rises through you. When you fall, the ocean falls through you. And when you crash on the shore, nothing is lost. You simply return to what you've always been. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop fearing the end of things. You stop obsessing over how you look compared to others. You stop trying to stretch your form into something unnatural, because you finally know that your essence is not fragile. It cannot be taken from you. It cannot be diminished. It is the ocean itself. And suddenly life becomes something else entirely. It becomes play. It becomes expression. It becomes movement without fear. You no longer live trying to survive. You live to experience, to witness, to let life move through you instead of trying to control every rise and fall. This is what happens when you choose yourself. You stop seeing yourself as a small, separate identity, struggling to stay afloat, and you start recognizing your connection to something infinitely larger. The pressure dissolves, the fear loosens. The world doesn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It feels like a current carrying you where you need to go. In this recognition, you find freedom. Not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of alignment. The freedom of knowing that you don't have to become anything other than what life is already expressing through you. The moment you begin choosing yourself, the fears you've been avoiding rise to the surface. They don't show up quietly. They show up with sharp questions. What if I lose my job? What if my family doesn't understand? What if I end up alone? What if everything falls apart because I stopped living the way people expect me to? These fears feel real because for so long, your sense of safety has been tied to approval, stability, and predictability. You've been taught that if you just keep everyone comfortable, if you keep playing your part, things will stay under control. But the truth is, The life you build by abandoning yourself is a fragile one. It cracks the moment you stop pretending. And the cost of that pretending is heavier than most people realize. Every time you say yes when you mean no, something inside you wilts. Every time you smile when you want to scream, something tightens in your chest. Every time you hide your truth because you're afraid of being judged, a small piece of your aliveness fades away. It's like becoming a machine. You wake up, you go through the motions, you follow the script, you perform the identity that others are comfortable with, and each day you drift a little further from yourself until life feels gray, mechanical, automatic. You're breathing, but it doesn't feel like living. You're functioning, but not flourishing. Your body feels this long before your mind admits it. The tension in your shoulders, the heaviness in your stomach, the tightness in your breath. These aren't random aches, they're signals, warnings. They're your body trying to say, this isn't you. This isn't the life you're meant to carry. And here's the truth most people avoid. Choosing yourself isn't what destroys your life. Pretending is. Pretending is what drains your energy, kills your creativity, suffocates your joy, and keeps you trapped in a version of yourself that feels smaller than your soul. Choosing yourself feels risky, but not choosing yourself costs everything. The question is no longer, what if I lose something by being myself? The real question is, what do I lose if I don't? Something remarkable begins to happen the moment you consistently choose yourself. The world around you may not change overnight, but the way you move through it does. What once felt heavy starts to feel lighter. What once felt impossible begins to soften. And at the center of it all, there's a quiet shift you can't fully describe, only feel. Your work changes first. Not necessarily the job itself, but the energy you bring to it. When you stop forcing yourself into roles that don't align with your truth, the resistance that used to exhaust you begins to dissolve. You're no longer dragging yourself through tasks that drain you just to meet expectations. Instead, you start gravitating toward what feels natural, meaningful, and alive. You stop measuring your worth by productivity and start feeling it in the ease of your own presence. Then your relationships shift. When you live behind a mask, you can only connect with the masks of others. But when you show up as yourself, you begin to attract people who are also willing to be themselves. Conversations become deeper, connections feel cleaner. You're no longer negotiating your truth just to keep someone comfortable. And paradoxically, the more you stop chasing approval, the more genuine closeness enters your life. Like attracts like. Authenticity calls out to authenticity. Even your body responds. All the tension you've carried for years, all the tightness you thought was normal, starts to loosen. Your breath drops lower. Your shoulders settle. Headaches fade. The constant clenching you've normalized begins to unwind. It's not magic. It's alignment. Your body, finally, stops fighting the strain of being someone you're not. And beneath all of this, a deeper peace emerges. Not the fragile peace that depends on everything going your way, but the kind that exists even when things are uncertain. A peace that comes from knowing you're no longer at war with yourself. You're not splitting your energy between who you are and who you pretend to be. You're whole now, integrated, grounded. This peace doesn't mean the world becomes easier. It means you become clearer. You're no longer thrown off course by every opinion, every judgment, every external shift. There is a center inside you that remains steady, no matter what moves around it. And that's the real transformation. Not the change of circumstances, but the change of consciousness. A life lived from truth instead of fear, from presence instead of performance, from alignment instead of survival. So here you are, standing at the threshold between who you've been and who you are becoming. You've seen what pretending costs. You've felt the weight of performing. You've watched the way your body responds when you force yourself into shapes that were never meant for you. And somewhere along this journey, you've also tasted what it feels like to come home to yourself. Even if only for a moment, you felt that unmistakable clarity. That inner stillness, that quiet truth that doesn't need permission to exist. And now the question becomes impossible to ignore. Will you choose yourself? Not tomorrow. Not when things settle down. Not when you feel braver or more prepared. Because life doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. It meets you where you stand, right here, right now. Choosing yourself won't erase fear. It won't make every challenge disappear. It won't guarantee that people understand your path or support every decision you make. But it will give you something far more valuable. It will give you your life back, the real one, the one that moves with your heartbeat instead of someone else's expectations. You are not here to be a shadow of the person you think you should be. You are not here to replay the same roles that kept you small. You are here to live, to feel deeply, to move in alignment with your own truth, to allow life to express itself through you in a way that no one else can replicate. So this is your moment. Not a dramatic leap, but a simple, honest decision. A quiet commitment to stop abandoning yourself, to stop dimming your own light, to stop hiding behind the person you think the world wants. Choose yourself. Choose your truth. Choose the life that feels like yours.